lost my other cutter. Oh, there it is. Oh, shoot. I forgot my seam allowance. Measure once, measure twice, for me 3 or 4 times, and then cut your fabric. Hi, and welcome to our next Finesse Color Challenge. I'm Angelique, and using only what I know about color theory and my quilting and sewing, I randomly pull 2 colors from all of our Finesse Classic colors, and I gotta find a way to make them work together. And when I get done, you get to tell me in the comments if you think I did a good job or not. So let's get started with our color pull. These are the 4 that we have used so far, and here are the corresponding cards for those. So you can see that they have been removed. So the remaining 60 solids and 20 variegated. So I'm gonna dump those in here. Be all empty. Give it a good shake. All right, reaching in for the first color. Ooh, Glacier. Good color, good color. Huh, Yellow Sunbeam. So our colors for the next one is Glacier and Yellow Sunbeam. Time for me to start thinking. Let us know what kind of great content you would like, and remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to turn on notifications. We have our Yellow Sunbeam and our Glacier. And so let me get my magical finesse hat on so I can start thinking about these. And I think what's really gonna help me is the color wheel. And let's find the closest colors from this color wheel that I found at one of my local quilt shops. So the first thing that I'm noticing about my Glacier and my Yellow Sunbeam is that these are split complementary colors. And so what that means is it's one off from the actual complementary, right? So let's take a closer look at some of the split complementary colors that fall on the other sides of our Yellow Sunbeam and our Glacier. So as we take a look at the first one, which is the Yellow Sunbeam, right off the bat, you can see these 2 colors are showing up right next to each other. But we're also starting to get some bolder tones as well. And we're even getting, as we pop up and look a little bit closer at the Glacier, we're also starting to see like some bright fuchsia and magenta colors popping out. And I am really, really drawn to those colors. I think one of the other things I want to kind of look at too is the triad colors that are associated with this. This is going to kind of put us a little bit more into this area and a little bit into some of these deeper tones, which I also think will be really complementary. And you know what I'm really starting to get kind of a vibe from these colors is fall. And that might be partially because, well, it is fall, right? I just know like sometimes you have these like gorgeous days in the fall, maybe some puffy clouds with that crisp, cool blue sky, and this is really kind of screaming that to me. And then you've got some of those split complementary colors like the oranges, we have our pumpkins, we have our fall leaves changing colors. So I'm really starting to kind of think about that. And mazes like corn mazes and straw mazes, I think I have an idea. What if we do some kind of a fun door hanging that's like a straw man or a straw woman, and we're going to use some of these colors that we've kind of picked out from our color wheel? I think it's a good idea. So let's go get started. Let me share with you what I've come up with. Here is my outline, and because we want it to be kind of rough, we're gonna do some rough edge applique. And let me show you what it's gonna look like with some of the colors in there. And so you can see the majority of our color scheme is coming from our Yellow Sunbeam and our Glacier with our background colors here. And we'll kind of get into some more of those like orangey colors for some of the body parts like the head and the legs. And I really want this part to be kind of a denim, right? This nice cool tone against some of these warm tones, but I wanted the shirt to really pop so I went with the magenta. And I think that maybe something close to our yellow sunbeam or maybe in our amber colors here will be good for both our bordering that we do with some trim and maybe even the hat. So I've got a color scheme. It's time for me to go to the fabric store, my favorite place. All right, now that I have an idea of the project that I want to do and the colors that I'm going to use, I went to my Finesse stash and I pulled all the colors and I took these to the fabric store. So I knew right off the bat, let's start with the background, right? So since I knew that I wanted to use Glacier as my sky background, I found this lovely pattern here, the little polka dots, and it's a little faded in places because I think that I'm going to want some puffy clouds effects when I do get to some quilting. And I think that's going to lend to that. And then again, for my background, I needed to continue to think about the other parts, which are going to be the haystacks that I've designed. And so this is what I found. Really liked this plaid that was there. It's going to give me some inspiration when I go to do some quilting. But then I also really liked this one. I'm going to want some like straw effects, right? And I think I can do that with some ripped fabric. So I'm going to use that one. And then of course, one of the main features of our straw person is going to be her dress. And so those cool tones from the blues with the denim. So we're gonna go with this one. It even has kind of a denim look to it. And then of course, wanted to make my shirt pop. So here is my magenta. Nothing screams fall to me more than plaid shirts. And then the hat, I wanted something a little bit more fun and floral, and I couldn't decide between these two colors. Both my amber and my foxtail were blended in here. And then I remembered at home, I do have some leftover oranges since I just wanted some solids anyway. And so I pulled these two to decide which one I'm gonna use for the face. And then I even had this leftover plaid blue to make like patches and some adornments on the dress. And so these are basically the fabrics I'm gonna be working from other than like backing. So let's start by cutting out our strips. For the long strips, we're just going to need to cut 24 strips. If you have enough fabric, you can do that straight from the fabric, or you can cut some strips and sew them together. 4 of those, and I need to do the 24 inches. So let's cut off our little excess here. And let's see. I lost my other cutter because I am crazy. Oh, there it is. Okay. And then, oh, shoot. I forgot my seam allowance. I cut these at 6 by 24, all my pieces. That's okay. We can work with it. So now our final size will be 5.5. It'll be fine. Measure once, measure twice, for me 3 or 4 times, and then cut your fabric. All right, so it's gonna be really simple. We're going to sew of our blocks together. I'll skip showing you sewing the background together, and we'll get to quilting our background. I'm going to use the Kinique 19X Elite on our Evolution Elite frame for this project. It's one of my favorite machines. It's got a nice throat space. It's easy for me to lift on and off my stuff. And I'm pretty much just going to do free motion quilting on this. And so like I've already kind of mentioned, I'm thinking like puffy clouds. So I'm going to use the Glacier to make those clouds. Some are overlapping, some are going off of the framed area. And now I want to work on my haystack. So using the Yellow Sunbeam, I'm just going to do some organic lines in the sense that I'm not really going to ruler work this because I want it to look more organic. So I'm just going to quilt around each of the blocks, and then I'm going to quilt some horizontal and vertical lines. Every now and again, I'll go ahead and quilt from right to left. That can be challenging because it puts a little bit more strain on the hook, and so I'm constantly watching my thread. And if my thread looks like it's starting to unwind, I'm gonna make sure to just go ahead and cut that off and start back from left to right. I went ahead and made the quilt sandwich right here on my frame, and now I'm going to do my quilting of the background with the Yellow Sunbeam and Glacier. I have my new templates that should fit a little bit better. Again, this is just giving me kind of a rough idea where I want everything to go. Yeah, this is gonna fit a lot nicer. I think it's still gonna be just a little tall with the hat. So I think if I just overlap my legs I'm gonna have plenty of space. All right, so now that I know it's gonna fit, I'm gonna go cut my fabric pieces, so join me at the cutting station. All right, so we have some pieces that we need to cut out for our applique. I'm going to start with the face, and I know I'm going to want to add some embellishments to the face, so I'm also going to want to cut a piece of interfacing. And my template is going to be 5 3/4, so I'm going to use this to cut. I absolutely love our 360 cutter. It just makes cutting circles so easy, and if I tried to do it with the template, it's going to look jagged, and I don't want that. So this is just going to make my life a ton easier. So I'm going to cut these couple of pieces. Sometimes it's easier to go ahead and put your interfacing on. I'm just going to stack it. Oh, you know what? I think I have it locked. Can't cut if I can't get the blade down. All right, so I have my 2 pieces. I'm gonna go iron this together. Also from this, we're gonna need our 2 legs and our neck. So those are gonna be ready to go. And then I've got a couple of templates so that they fit on the paper well that I'm gonna have to cut on the fold. I am going to use the 28mm straight cutters for this. And I'm gonna use the ruler guide for my really straight areas to kind of help me cut that. And then for this area that's a little bit more curved, I'm just going to use the regular straight cutter without the lip. And so because I put it on the fold, I now have that perfect skirt. And I've got to do the same thing with the hat as well. All right, here's the rest of my pieces cut and ready to go. So we're ready to start adding some embellishments to some of our fabric and sewing some of our fabric together. I realized that I cut this wrong because I put it on the 4 3/4 instead of the 5 3/4, so I just cut myself a new one. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some of the embellishments and sew a couple of the pieces together. And so this is the face. I'm going to keep it really simple. I think we'll just add like a fun smile. And I'm just using obsidian for these details. All right, so I'm just going to cut a little triangle off of my fabric I have here to make a nose. And I'm just going to rough edge applique that on to my face here. All right, so now I'm just going to cut a couple of pieces off of this one to make a pocket and just kind of a rip, you know, like a patch. And so to the skirt, I'm just going to rough edge applique my little pocket down. And we're just going to add our pocket. This might be a little big. No, I think it'll be cute. We'll just fold that top over so we've got a nice finished edge. And I'm going to leave that top open because it's going to be a pocket. And then last, I'm just going to rough edge my seam here to hold my shirt together. I'm just overlapping this a little bit. And this is just gonna help later because we're gonna stitch again once it's actually on the quilt top. So I have all my applique pieces cut. So as you can see, I put a little marking here so I could center as best as I could the 2 legs, which I've pinned in place. And now I'm just gonna rough edge applique the inside edge first. And I've decided that I think I want to make some dimension to my scare girl. So I'm gonna grab some stuffing, just a little bit of fiberfill, and I'm gonna start adding this. Before I get it closed up, it might be helpful to have a little tool to kind of help me get in there. And I don't need a lot. Just kind of notice this, with this being kind of peaked where it's at, might be just a little hard to get that stuffing in the corner down there. So, all right, I'm going to continue to stitch down. And I can just continue now to add some stuffing from the top, just to get a little bit of dimension to my legs. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch it closed. So I'm just going to continue to do that with all of my pieces, starting from the bottom and working my way up. And then I'll check back with you here and there for some tips as I'm getting this done. So we're still stitching, but I did want to kind of get some pieces prepared because I want to make some hair. So we're just going to rip a few strips, and then I can fold these up and I can tuck them underneath, kind of pin those down, and as I close up my edge here, I'll get hair, and I'm going to do that on both sides. I'm also going to do that to make some hands and a few other embellishments around the hay area. We're also going to add some other embellishments like leaves, maybe some pumpkins, things like that. And so I'll leave a little space here so I can tuck those in, and then I'll just sew that down. And then other places where I can't tuck it in because of it, I'll just sew on top of it. You can do this on your frame, or you can do it on your regular machine, or you can hand sew it. That's up to you. But this is just going to add some of those dimensions to it. I absolutely love how this came out, and it was so much fun to put together. So what I'll do is I'll tidy up my templates, and we'll put a pattern for you in the description below this video. And don't forget to tell me how I did on today's challenge inspired by Glacier and Yellow Sunbeam. And we'd love to see your creations from this, so be sure to link with a hashtag Grace Color Challenge, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.